Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 15 of season 4. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Joining us in New York City, our great producer, Mr. Alex Patakis.
What's up, guys?
How's it going? And the king of social media, Mr. Danny Paletti in Baltimore. How's it going, Danny?
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving week.
Yes, indeed. So if you are listening, hey, we really appreciate it. We tried to get this out early, even though no, the game isn't until next Monday. But if you want to break away for an hour from the family, what a perfect way to do it. Listening to a whole lot of Wolves. All righty. Well, no game this week, but International Roundup had some very interesting developments, Danny.
Yeah, as we're recording right now, we're sort of halfway through the international games this week. So the teams that have already played, Hwang played against Singapore, scored a goal. If you're on Twitter as much as we are, then you probably saw that banging around. It was a decent goal with some pretty terrible defending. He plays China tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. To my knowledge, that one's not available to watch legitimately, but I'm sure folks could find a way if they wanted to. I just looked it up, and Ryan Aït-Nouri was an unused sub against Somalia, but he got his second ever cap against Mozambique, I think yesterday, maybe day before. So that's nice. He made the switch from France to Algeria not that long ago, so it's good that he's actually seeing the field. Sasha came on for a late cameo against Estonia. Nothing particularly of note. Yerson was unused in the Colombia game, which was actually a really eventful game, but he wasn't he wasn't part of the team on the field. The major talking points, I guess, are Toti and Jose Sa getting their first caps for Portugal against Liechtenstein, which again, not the highest of opponents, and they both looked pretty good, but the level of opposition has to be taken into account. But I mean, Toti did what Toti does, which is that he runs very weirdly, but somehow always looks very calm on the ball. So he kept going forward with the ball too. I kept hoping he'd drive into the box. Seeing him get his first cap just made me reflect on how crazy his journey is. I put this on Twitter, but his last game for Grasshoppers was December 19th, 2021. And then he comes back to Wolves during their winter break. And Bruno Lage likes the look of him, and he plays January 15th, like a month later, against Southampton. And since then, he's always been kind of around the first team, and especially this year, he's now like a first team regular. And he got his first Portugal call-up May this year, and now his first Portugal cap the other day. And it's just like, what a wild couple of years. It's just under 2 years. So I think it's like 20 months or so to go from the Swiss First League to a Portugal international is like, I don't know if there's like a lot of precedence for that, especially amongst the sort of big European teams.
There's certainly a few similarities you could say to Kilman in that regard as well, like not so much the rags to riches story, but that nurturing of talent and the somewhat unique production line that they've brought him through on. So I think with both of those players in particular, you got to certainly tip a hat to the scouting team that's picking them out and putting them on that journey. I think it's testament to those if you can pick up players to that value and then within 2 or 3, 4 years turning them into internationals or the captain of your team. It's pretty good going.
Yeah.
I think Toti is really perfect for international play as well because he's got that little bit of extra swagger. And I feel like you need that to be a good international player. As good as it is to have some guys that are, the team builders, it's always good to have some swagger behind your play when you're playing internationally. And he's also one of the Wolves guys that I don't think plays down to the competition, which is extremely important, especially in European qualifying. Yeah, Paul, are you surprised Toady got a cap for his country before Kilman got a cap for England?
Not really. I don't know the depth of the Portugal squad and the players that they can draw upon as real starters before Totti. But I feel that his path is probably a little easier than Kilman's is into that squad of England's, and it's a ongoing story often. But if you've got someone like Harry Maguire who's not even starting for his domestic team that's just guaranteed a place, then it's a pretty sad indictment upon Kilman that based on those types of decisions, he's not really going to get a look in. Even in a fixture like today against Northern Macedonia, that would have been perfect kind of breeding ground just as a squad introduction that, okay, I know the likes of Maguire, those types of players for these particular opponents away from home, already qualified. Let's see if you guys from behind the scenes, those up and comers. So as far as the England dynamic goes, I'm not surprised that Toti's got in there for his country first.
So, Danny, you mentioned Jose Sa getting his first cap for Portugal. But Wolves can't have anything nice, can they? According to Sun Sport, Wolves are already looking at replacements at goalkeeper as there is interest from Saudi clubs and Jose Sa. Paul, truth or bollocks?
It's you would say based on the publication that it's come from, that it is a tried and tested tabloid that purely pump out these rumors purely on speculation. You tend to say bollocks, but there's part of it that is so left field that would have we even guessed which player might be lined up for a move to Saudi like last week and thought of Saar first? So that gives me an inkling that, if there's smoke, there's fire about it. But even to the extent when you're reading the article and you see the fee that's quoted, it's like 40 million. And that's what got my attention. I was like, okay, if that is genuine, and there's players out there that you can get as a replacement, FFP wise and all of it that goes into it, I'm probably having a stern conversation about it. My only reservation is that he is having a good season. It does seem that we got some stability in that back line. It's a big move to make midway through in that January transfer window if you ship out your number one and bring someone new in.
40 million? That's what you saw? Good
Yep.
God, I'd pack his bags for that. And I love Jose Sa, but holy God, that's a lot of money for a keeper. Danny, what is the fee you'd be okay with?
I mean, I'll take 40 million right now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, essentially, what's the fee that makes you start thinking about it? And it's a different answer whether we're talking January or the summer, like Paul alluded to. You know, if it is January, I kind of want to hold their feet to the fire and get as much as we can, because it's not just about replacing the goalkeeper. It's also like, I don't know. They keep talking about this like leadership group. I don't know exactly who's part of that, but in terms of like vibe leaders, we can definitely see that like Jose Sa is like a good person to have around. He isn't like an elite goalkeeper, but he is a very good goalkeeper. And it's like Paul said, shaking up the squad in the middle of a season at such an important role would be risky. And so I would want the fee to reflect that risk. If it waited until the summer, I think you could go as low as like, something like 20 or 25. That's why it makes sense to me. Like Paul said, like it makes a certain amount of sense, the Saudi link, because it's like, he's a keeper who like arguably could be playing for a quote unquote bigger team, a bigger, better team, if he were a bit more traditional in the way that he was a goalkeeper, but he would be perfectly good in a Saudi league Whereas if they come to Wolves, they don't have to pay, whatever insane price they'd have to prize out someone like Onana or Donnarumma or what, like it's like, so it all kind of makes a certain amount of sense. Whether that means there's anything to it or not, I've absolutely no clue.
Alex, putting you on the spot. You got any names in your head if Saul left that you'd want Wolves to go after?
Only one that I feel like I've seen mentioned, and it's not even so much about like actual transfer links, but more fan speculation. And that was Kelleher, the second keeper for Liverpool. But that was
Stu's
also
gonna love
when
you.
What'd you say?
Stu's gonna love you.
Yeah. That was also under Lopetegui, where playing out from the back was like kind of a priority, and I think his distribution and his comfort with the ball at his feet was one of the reasons he was kind of pinpointed there. And also, it's like it's really hard for him to get a game when there's someone like Allison. That's the only one that jumps to mind. Like, and if you could
I think that's a
get
good one.
40 in January and work out like a loan to buy scenario with Liverpool, where you may not even have to spend that 40 right away, and maybe instead that just kind of bolsters your hunt for a true number 9. I think that'd be really good. My only hesitation is that I don't know that they really will find a better shot stopper than Jose Sa. And even though I think, Gary O'Neill has struck gold going back to this back three and this counter-attacking, like let's coil and then spring out style, like he continually mentions that his way, like his, is not that. It's more of like what they were doing at the beginning of the season when they got trounced by Brighton, and not having an elite shot stopper and them going back to a back four at any point really scares me. So I'm not saying that's the reason you would keep him or turn down a significant fee from Saudi, but it's something to think about. Like, he hasn't been busy really the past few matches with this system, but this system is also not the system that Wolves desire to play in the long term. So
yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, when you're talking 40 million and with FFP, well, we kind of saw with Everton this last week, you ignore FFP, you get in big trouble. Everton docked 10 points, but they've been playing well enough. I still wouldn't be shocked to see them play out of relegation. But Paul, do you think that kind of justified what Fosun did this summer? I mean, without us actually seeing the books.
At this stage, I think it does, like, very, again, to that point of without seeing the books and without going into that minute detail, I think it does. And it may highlight that there was a certain amount of reservation needed, and just to peg back expectations sometimes. I think if that had have all been done in a way that had a little better PR around it, or was communicated in a little better way, then I think the fan base as a whole could have been quite accommodated to it. It just seemed at the time that they were saying, oh, well, it's got these FFP implications and there are reports in the press about it, and everyone was like, yeah, sure, whatever. No one had that full belief in it. They just thought it was a case of Fosun trying to cash in on something. So I think done in the right way, it makes sense. And it actually reminded me a little of the question from the last show from Andrew Bryers, when he asked about the most important loss, and it really puts a spin on Lopetegui again, because when we've got a listener to the show contacts us, he talks about the finances and things, and what he highlights is something that I wasn't fully appreciative of, was the importance of the wages on the turnover. That actually we see these, transfer figures going through and everything, we need to be spending all this money. But really what is behind all of that is the wages and how you need to compete with the players that you've got and the wages that are on. So it does seem that the work that went on to really free up that wage bill with the likes of Raul, Routinho, it kind of makes sense why Traore wasn't retained. If he was talking 6 figures a week in this scenario, it simply wasn't going to happen based on this wages to turnover issue. And it comes back to Lopetegui again and Lopetegui versus O'Neill, that if they've got rid of Lopetegui for this elite coach's salary, whatever it was in his team, and have managed to pick up O'Neill without having to pay any compensation, obviously a lesser salary, and getting a potentially more of a return out of that squad than they were getting with Lopetegui, then really that's showing what a masterstroke that could have been.
Alex, should we send Al Hilal a gift basket? Because I mean, it's a good possibility they saved Wolves from 10 points.
Yeah. That, at this point, I might not even be that mad if he's loaned back out to a club that would kind of originally annoy us, because at the very least we have a chance, well, more than a chance at survival. I don't know if we would say that if there was 10-point deduction. So we owe him big time for that one.
Danny, to me though, I look at the Everton situation. It seemed to me a big reason Everton got punished as hard as they did was because they pretty much just said, fuck FFP. Like, they were openly defiant. Do you think that kind of played into it to be like, no, guys, we're really serious about this?
Yeah, definitely. That was part of it. And although I do have some sympathy, which is that these regulations are about as clear as mud. And I have I don't know. I imagine it must be very difficult. You're trying to essentially run a business where you have to kind of constantly buy and sell every 6 months. And there is this like nebulous sense of like how much you can spend. It also has to do with wages, as Paul said. And at any time, because it's never been tested, this is the thing that like from a public relations point of view that like I think the average fan is sort of grappling with is like, what does this mean in regards to like the charges against City? Like, and I can imagine the board at Everton thinking the same thing. Like, well, like I don't understand like what we are supposed to have done when we're just trying to stay afloat during COVID and blah blah blah. So I think, like you said, there are plenty of stories I've read that I think attribute enough blame to Everton to say like, they at least did something to flout the regulations, but going forward, I just can't see fans not continuing to be confused, basically completely confused. I know I will be when it comes to whatever happens with City, whether that's like, unless it is literally like a 1-to-1 similarity where it's like, okay, Everton got 10-point deduction, City get 1,150 point deduction or whatever.
And they would still probably finish out a relegation.
Yeah. Unless that happens, it's always going to be confusing. Not only what is the difference, but also like, what is the purpose of these regulations? Because ostensibly it's to keep these clubs financially solvent, to keep them from going bankrupt. But it's also sort of being billed as like it keeps the playing field fair, but it's hard to make that argument. Increasingly difficult to make that argument.
Paul, which fan bases do you think are shitting bricks right now?
I think a good few will be, and I think it's going to be a wake up call for a good number. Those that have probably been more on the Everton outlook of things than those that will have been doing their due diligence and looking at it in minute detail when it comes to balancing the books and making it run as effectively as possible when it comes to all of this. And I think not only kind of clubs looking over the shoulder potentially, but it's going to make fan bases think about it more closely as well, that these are the parameters that we're operating in now, and the likes of the likes of Fulham and these types of teams that might have to show some care.
I'll be interested to see how Villa and Forest come out of this, because I know over the past couple of years, people have really looked at some of their transfer spending and said, how are you getting away with this?
Especially Forest. At least Villa can still point back to, the Grealish funds to an extent. But yeah, Forest, I mean, how much did they spend? I mean, they gave us a bunch of money for, Morgan Gibbs White. I don't know. But one guy that the Wolves tried to lock up, and if you saw his picture from today on their social media, it looked like newest Bond villain, Hugo Bueno, signed to a contract extension through 2028. Alex, I think of all of us, you would be the only one that could pull off that look.
Oh yeah. I mean, I do like a black on black. I mean, in New York, everyone wears black all the time, right? So that's just kind of the uniform. So, yeah, I'm down to do that. If we get a Hugo Bueno goal or assist, maybe I'll make some purchases like I did in honor of Lopetegui last year with the maroon turtleneck.
You'll go turtleneck and blazer.
Yeah, just
blazer,
the way he's sitting at the desk with his little mustache. It's like James Bond entering the room. Hello, Mr. Bond.
I'll recreate that photo.
Yes.
And my friend that I watch games with actually just bought a Bueno shirt this year, so I could borrow his shirt for the photo to hold it up. Nice. It won't say 2028 on it, but at least it'll say Bueno. So
nice.
Now, does it have an initial before Bueno?
Great question. I can't really remember.
Because that's a shrewd piece of business if it just says Bueno, because like, what if we sell Hugo Bueno in January, but then we keep Santi Bueno and he starts to get starts once Craig Dawson slows up?
It's possible. That's I like that multi-purpose. Let's just keep getting guys with the same names. Let's find the next Kalajdzic out there and sign him so that I could invest in a shirt for Big Sassy.
Yeah, well, maybe if Jose Sa leaves, we get Neto from Bournemouth to go in goal. Although that feels like a distinct downgrade. So.
Yeah.
Paul, the extension, is that Bueno or no Bueno?
It's Bueno. And I think it's it's funny you mention Neto right there. I think there's a nod to that profile of player with this contract extension in particular for both him and Aït-Nouri. Really, is they've managed to lock down a player again. They've got through on the production line with a very minimal investment to begin with. He's come in and he's certainly shown potential. Now he can go head to head with Aït-Nouri trying to claim that left back or left wing spot. If Aït-Nouri continues on his trajectory, or either one of them does, then they're the next off the taxi rank in terms of a big bucks departure. So if it's Bueno, you've got that long-term contract to lock him up, so he's going to go for a lot of money. Whereas they won't make that mistake again like they did with Traoré and have him leave on a free. If it's Aït-Nouri and the speculation that goes around with him because he's having a good season, you've got his ready-made replacement waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Danny, what do you think this says about Aït-Nouri's future?
I try not to read too much into it. It's if it's the two of them, I mean, you'd like to have two players in every position, and it's hard to argue that that's not a good pairing going forward. Do I expect that the two of them will continue to share that left back spot for the next 6 years? Probably not. I think Aït-Nouri especially is probably on his way up. I don't know that he's definitely on his way out in the next couple windows, but I wouldn't be surprised. But I feel pretty safe with the two of them there. It's exciting too, because to have the two players vying for it, both sort of in a similar stage in their career, where I think they'd be hungry even if they weren't competing with somebody, because they're at that stage where they're trying to prove themselves to maybe get that next big move. So it's exciting, and it's exciting that we get like a built-in chance to see it too, because Aït-Nouri should be gone with for AFCON in the middle of the season. So there's going to be a period where even if Aït-Nouri's been killing it up until then, we'll get to see Hugo Bueno. And I remember plenty of games where he looked extremely useful. So
yeah, absolutely. And then really probably the best news to come over the last week, David Ornstein at The Athletic said Wolves are working on a contract extension with Hwang Hee-chan, and talks are progressing nicely as a desire from both parties that he remain with the club. Paul, after talking with the director of marketing over there, this is no surprise, right?
I think so, both in locking up that contract and giving the club that protection should the vultures come calling if he touches double figures this season, which he's certainly on the trajectory to do it. That 10-12 goal season is not something to be sniffed at. So I think that bodes well, and just to have that figurehead as well as part of the club. And he's not he's actually kind of one of the more senior players when you think about it age-wise. So if you do lock him down now, you could probably think about him being around for the duration of that contract and maybe into his early 30s. And if he's contributing like he's doing this season, either starting or as he ages in and around the squad, that's exactly the profile of player that you want as a squad member. And if he's got all the commercial razzmatazz off the back of it over in Korea and the Far East, then it's a win-win for everyone.
Alex, while maybe not as big off the pitch as Raul Jimenez was impact-wise, it does feel like Hwang Hee-chan is good to lock up because he's very valuable off the pitch as much as on the pitch.
Yeah, certainly in the last game against Spurs, I think while he was only half of the reason, I think was still the way that game was marketed, the way, a lot of things with this club are happening on social media, and the way there's cameras following him to the market, which Danny tipped us off to. And I have since gone down that same rabbit hole, watching him do the most innocuous things like unload groceries from the car. Is a testament to the type of pull that he has. And it really only works if, I shouldn't say it only works if he's playing well, but it really helps that he has 6 goals in November, sitting in November, because, this kind of like, well, the intent when they signed him was probably to grow in the, East Asian market to begin with. I feel like we haven't really felt that until he started playing well and until he started staying healthy. So if he continues on this path, yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer. He could essentially be the face of a club, one of the faces of a nation, which is huge. And the coolest part about that is, like Raul, he does seemingly want to be at Wolves, which is really nice. And if this model of like buying, kind of like slightly undervalued players and trying to get the most out of them is going to continue to work, it's nice that some of these guys will stick around, because you don't want to just be that stopgap for someone to get that next big move. So I think it's a lot of feel good right now when it comes to Hee-chan and his situation at Wolves. So I hope they get the deal done.
Danny, do you think that if he probably gets a raise, with this. Should he just go ahead and purchase a new home, or should he renovate the kitchen of his home and the entryway, which was really bothering Alex?
Hire a cleaner, please. There's so much clutter.
So just renovating the kitchen for his mom, or should he just, get a bigger place? I don't know what the real estate market is out there, Paul, but
I bet his mom wouldn't allow him to hire a cleaner.
Fair.
Although I will point out, and Paul will probably back me up, his refrigerator situation is pretty large, even by American standards, let alone by UK standards. He's got massive refrigerators. He should settle in, because it looks like that's kind of part of it too. He just seems like one of that kind of player who, I think it's not a coincidence that he's starting to feel more settled in the area, and he's also starting to be more settled on the field.
Being married to a Korean with a Korean mother-in-law, I can tell you the fridge situation, that's pretty normal for them. Like, we've managed since my mother-in-law moved in with us to condense down, because her old house, she literally had 3 fridges and a deep freeze. So now we've just got one extra large fridge in the deep freeze. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised to see that, man. They love to grocery shop. They want all their stuff.
Is it like many others, including my family is Greek, like they don't know how to cook for like small amounts of people, so like every meal is just for 10?
No, they don't at all. I mean,
so leftovers need to be stored somewhere.
Let me tell you, Thanksgiving's coming up this week. We got like 15 people coming over, which means my wife will cook for about 40. Paul's been to my house for my birthday. He can confirm that.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, guys, any other news that we should talk about, Danny? Yeah.
Not for me.
So let's get right to Fulham, the match against 2 of our favorites.
Whole Lotta Wolves is self-funded, so if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities as a way to reach a niche audience, email hello@wholelottawolves.com for our sponsor packages. Just want to make a contribution as a listener who enjoys the show? Then head to buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. That's buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. We greatly appreciate any contribution. Up the Wolves.
All right, joining us to preview Monday's game against Fulham from the Cottage Talk podcast, it is Mr. Russ Goldman. How's it going, Russ?
Good. Thanks for having me come on the show, guys. I look forward to speaking with you about this match.
Well, you've got 2 of our personal favorites, especially you have our sweet prince, Adama Traore, and our Mexican sensation, Raul Jimenez. So how are they doing? Are we going to see them a lot, especially after the international break?
Well, first let's start with Raul Jimenez. I expect him to start. He did finally score for Fulham. He's a player that I've been just rooting for, like you wouldn't believe, to succeed with Fulham. He had does have huge shoes to fill. He was never brought in my opinion, to take the place of Mitro. But because Fulham did not bring in a striker, it now has come down to him. They actually have 2 other strikers along with Raul that they've been rotating. But honestly, I truly believe that Jimenez will start, and I think he keeps getting better each and every game, but I don't know what we're going to get from him throughout the season. It's obvious the manager really loves him. And I just think that what we're seeing right now is I think he decides which striker goes based on the opponent. So I don't think there's any question that he's going to play against Wolves.
And how about our sweet prince?
Well, what's interesting about him, he's just coming back from injury, and we're all excited to see him. We've seen glimpses of him. We've also seen what we've seen from him in the past, that he looks the part, the finishing just isn't there. And we've seen it a few times, but I'm excited to see how he really can grow into Marco's system, because I think Marco will bring the best out of Adama Traore. So for me, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I don't expect him to start because he's still coming back from injury, but even in a small cameo, he still shows what he can offer. So in Fulham's situation, with really not being able to really depend on any certain winger at this point, I would play Traore, but I expect him to come off the bench.
So, Russ, it was a summer of disruption, somewhat, a lot of speculation over Marco Silva. You mentioned Mitrovic already, his departure. Then last minute, Joe Polina, 11th hour move to Bayern collapsing. Has that meant this first part of the season's been somewhat of a hangover for you?
Let me just put it to you this way, guys. Going into the season, in fact, over the summer, I was feeling very confident. This is obviously before Mitrovic was sold. The situation with Paulinho happened at the last minute. But the main issue, even more than Mitrovic, was the contract with Marco Silva, which was hanging over the team. So you could say there was a hangover. Well, he recently signed a new contract. And I think it affected what they did over the summer. I think that's one of the major reasons they did not bring in a striker. So for me, I believe that the January transfer window is going to be massive for Fulham Football Club. And I know where they are right now. They're only 3 points away from Wolves, believe it or not. And with everything that's gone on, all of the turmoil, the fact that Silva signed a new contract, I think we're about to see the other side of Fulham, especially if they could sign a striker in January. I was talking several times. I've talked several times to Thomas from Wolves blog, and he talked about last season. And when you don't have that striker, how that can really affect you. And I think Fulham are going through what Wolves went through last season, except for the managerial change. I think Wolves were missing that striker. I think Fulham are missing it as well right now. So you're seeing them struggle. You're also seeing the wingers who were playing at a high level last season, not at the same level. You are really depending on older players to be at the same level as they were last season. And I'll give you a couple of examples. You've got Tim Ream, who I want Fulham to bench, honestly. And then you have Willian, who I think is really starting to show his age. So you have two players that have really not been at the same level as last season. However, I think Fulham have some very good players that can fill into some of these roles, including into Tim Ream's role once we have a full complement of center backs. But for me, I look at what's going on with Fulham, and I think we're about to see the other side of it. And I think it's going to start on Monday night. I'm actually feeling very confident about the match. I heard your last episode, and it was interesting because you were talking about lowly Fulham. Well, I think lowly Fulham are about to do a number on Wolves next Monday night.
Ooh, did we say lowly? I didn't think we said lowly Fulham. No, maybe we did. I blame Alex. Alex probably said it.
I think I did, actually. Yeah.
Then again, I'm drunk by the end of the podcast anyway, so it could have been me. So good news for Wolves, though. Paulina is suspended for Monday's fixture. So how big of a loss is that going to be? And how do you guys anticipate lining up with his absence?
Okay, well, I could look at it this way. They're different positions. The one good thing I could say from a Fulham perspective is they have been working on this solution throughout the summer, because this situation without him was going to happen at some point because he gets a lot of yellow cards, so he was going to get suspended. So I want to say they've been preparing for a while. I expect Sasa Lukic to play that role. He actually played it well over the summer. I saw him play in Philadelphia in the summer series, and I thought he did it very well. Did a good job in the Paulinho role. That's not his natural job, but he can do it. Then you'll have Alex Iwobi probably play another of the three, and then you'll have Pereira. So that'll be your three. But I'm not going to lie and tell you that a loss of Paulina isn't huge, just like I think you could tell me the loss of Neto is probably pretty huge for Wolves. So in my book, they kind of offset each other. They're different players, different positions, but I think their impacts on each of our clubs are pretty massive.
So, I'll take the blame for saying lowly Fulham. I think I was looking at the form table. Having not won since early October over Sheffield United, it's kind of surprising that you're still 7 points clear of relegation. Not that I think you guys are going to be dragged into a relegation battle. So
don't backtrack now, Alex. Don't backtrack.
I'm wondering how you feel like where will you be comfortably mid-table, as I guess Fulham is now after the festive fixtures? Like, do you have an optimistic point of view that so much has gone wrong and we're still okay?
Well, what's interesting, Alex, and listen, I appreciate all points of view, all opinions. So if you feel Fulham are in trouble, that's your opinion. I respect that. I respectfully disagree if someone says to me that they're going to be in a relegation battle. I don't expect it. Obviously, the situation with Everton changes a lot of things. But I'm going to say it right now. I actually look at Fulham very similar to Wolves from last season. You struggled at the beginning of the season, eventually found your way a little bit. So I think you're going to see a similar situation with Fulham. What's interesting about what has happened with Wolves, and big credit to Wolves for their victories. And I actually like Wolves, and I want to see Wolves succeed. I just want to say that. I really do. I like your coach. I like the way that you've gone from losing some key players. You've really been able to, I think, come together as a team. So for me, I have nothing against Wolves whatsoever. But when I look at Fulham, I know that Fulham have struggled against a lot of the big six or even big eight teams. They've lost a lot of matches, but they've always been able to beat the teams around them. That's why I'm confident that they're not going to be in trouble, because they did that last season. They've already done it this season. And if they continue to do it, they should be comfortably mid-table. But I'm here to tell you guys, I'm not happy with comfortably mid-table. I wanted them to push on. I'm very upset with what Fulham did this summer. And I've actually called on my own show for the ownership to sell Fulham Football Club. That's how upset I am, because they let a tremendous opportunity this summer really just go away. And they let the Mitrovic thing happen. They almost sold Paulina, and they had the thing with Marco hanging over them. But they still have a very good coach. They do have what I think is a good squad. Not a very good squad, a good squad. So I think they'll end up being comfortably mid-table as we get through Christmas.
Well, I will say this. I think you'd be surprised on how many Wolves fans in the U.S. root for Fulham when they're not playing Wolves because of Raul Jimenez and Adama Traore. Still very popular, guys, and we'll see in our predictions later, but I fully expect them to be involved in this result. So, Russ, how can we listen to your podcast?
Sure, guys. You can listen to my podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's just Cottage Talk. You can follow me on Twitter at Russ_Goldman, and you can also listen to the show on any platform that has a podcast. I'm there, and I'm also part of the Talk Sport Fan Network, which is great to be a part of. So I'm very happy to be on your show today. And I'm sorry I came in a little bit hot, but I actually listened to the show, and let's just say it upset me. So I wanted to have a little bit of a response.
I love it. No, I love the passion. You come at us. Come at us with facts. That's what I like.
Also, kudos to like coming in, having done some homework, listening to us, so you kind of know our point of view on Wolves. That's really cool.
No problem, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Thanks to Russ Goldman of Cottage Talk podcast. Alex, how dare you? How dare you call them lowly Fulham?
It's a phrase I listening back to a few of our own shows, I think I use it a lot. I should probably be less liberal with the use of lowly. But
I
that
think
being
it's
said,
because everybody else calls us lowly, so it's a little bit of a no. Screw you guys, you're lowly.
yeah, throw it back at them. I mean, they are definitely not in form. However, it is crazy when you look at the table that they're still like very comfortably clear. That's just a testament to how bad the bottom of the league really is this year. Because teams like them, and quite frankly, even teams like us, shouldn't probably feel as comfortable as we do right now.
Paul, we've kind of been getting lucky here with some of these matches recently with key players being suspended with and now with Fulham with Paulina. I mean, that should make a big difference because he's a force there in the middle.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of these fixtures going away from home, tricky stadium to go and visit. It's one where you look at and think that's one of those games that can be won and decided thanks to the middle of the park and who shows up in midfield. So with that in mind, I think it's a boost, although I think losing one of our key players at the back and the impact that will have on how we shape up and line up, I think that we need to factor that into it as well.
Danny, I mean, we can almost be assured that either Raul or Adama is going to have a big impact on this game, right? If not both.
Right. Although I was happy to see that Raul finally scored for Fulham, so at least we will know that he won't score his first Fulham goal against Wolves. But Adama could still score his first Fulham goal against Wolves. Yeah, I'm sure that it'll be a talking point throughout the match, over under 9.5, the number of times that the commentator refers to something that one of those players did at Wolves, or both of them together as a pairing. I'm also very interested in the battle between, if Adama continues to play sort of vaguely on the right like he always used to, what's that going to look like coming up against Ryan Aït-Nouri and Toti? I mean, I'm sure they've done it in practice before, and Ryan Aït-Nouri has shown his ability to defend against very good players, but there's good, and then there's just raw speed and strength. So
I'm really dreading this. I'm not gonna lie. I love it when Adama touches the ball because it's like get up off your seat. And now I'm really worried that he's gonna be doing the same to, our left side of our defense. How about you, Alex?
Well, I mean, we've also seen what, him kind of carrying the ball down the field results in, and oftentimes it was us being frustrated. So I don't know, should we really be that worried? Like, we finally get to feel what it's like for the other teams who are probably like, oh, that's all right, he could dribble by as many guys as he wants, it's not going to result in anything. That's kind of, by the way, just like my general approach whenever I watch Man United and watch Antony go down the field. I'm just like, do your thing, buddy. But it's obviously going to sting a little. What I'm really nervous about is the fact that we don't know how they're going to line up defensively because Dawson is out. So, like, one way or another, somebody new is coming into the team, or they're going to be in a new shape. And against his speed, that's not the guy you want when you're testing something out, so that makes me nervous, which definitely makes me think like the whole narrative of like Adama and Raul kind of like showing up in this game, it could be becoming more of a reality, even though theoretically as the more informed side, we should get something from this game, but I'm nervous.
Now, Paul, Raul has never been good after an international break. However, he does get a couple extra days of rest. Do you think that's going to play a big part?
I think based on what Russ was saying, and probably with him scoring prior to the break, then he'll be in line to start, even if he's got some air miles under his belt for traveling over the break. So I don't think it'll think it'll impact kind of lineup a whole ton, but maybe the output that they get off of him over the course of the 90 minutes, and with the other strikers they've got the opportunity to bring in and give him respite after 60 odd minutes.
Paul, what are they going to do with Dawson suspended? Back four, bring in
I don't
Santiago
know.
to go Bueno.
Yeah, I've got two lineups drafted up, but when you immediately said about not making too many tweaks when you're coming up against someone like Traore, then that immediately just made me come back and think of that five at the back, just because they could plan for Traore and know that if he does start, if he does come on, then they could well give Totti that man marking job on him again that he's done against City, and showed it against Tottenham as well, that it's just kind of, that's your guy, that's your space, you're defending Totti, you've got the pace to keep up with him, rather than, and he'll know that he's got the double protection of having Out-Nouri as well to double up on him. So going back between those two lineups, I'd probably favour that more cautious approach still.
How about you, Danny?
How quick is Tony Gomez?
Well, he's not a Dama quick. We already know that. I think he's got good speed, but
I don't know. Personally, I sort of weirdly prefer just bringing in Santi Bueno. I think he's probably better than we think he is, because that Ipswich game was cursed from the beginning. But I think if I had to predict what he's going to do, I feel like he'll go halfway between the bring in Santi and everything's the same, and just go to a back four and change everything. He'll hit the middle option, which is have Doc play it at right center back or something.
That weird play you don't expect to come in.
And I'm not sure I love that, but I literally have no idea what the choice is going to be. And I have a lot of faith in Totti to mark a lot of people. I don't know that Adama is one of them.
My back four theory was that you could still have a lot of protection by starting Hugo Bueno at left back and playing Out-Nouri as left midfield, and then that would allow that there was some chatter about, well, where do you start Sarabia after making such an impact against Spurs? But do you even think about it? But I potentially, if he did go to a four, it could be a role that he takes up on the right hand side of that midfielder. That it's a right midfield role. He's not a winger. He's not going to take that man on, but it's a more creative option potentially out there, especially because we've got to bear in mind that if Hwang does play tomorrow, is it against China, then that's a delay for him getting back. If we've still got no Neto, we could be short on options based on his fitness level for playing up front. So I think then you might be thinking, well, I could play if Hwang's not fit enough to start based on performances during the week. You could actually start Sarabia and Bellegarde in the same team off of Cunha as a sole striker, that false nine. So I don't know. There's a ton of different permutations from this fixture that you wouldn't have thought of really going into it.
this is the worst, right, Alex? I hate that we're having to have these conversations about how to guard Raul and Adama. I know it doesn't happen. I wish we would have been able to keep them all throughout their careers.
Yeah. And it's insane that they're on the same team.
Yeah.
I think that makes it a lot worse. I mean, it's part of you is I want to get it all over with on 2 match days, but it's also kind of stinks to the idea that they could combine for a goal against Wolves is a really tough one to swallow.
I just reminded of the Office episode when Michael announced that the branch was going to close, and he just said, "This is the worst." That's the way I feel about this. Okay, Paul, let's get these predictions updating here. A lot of 3-pointers. Me, Danny, and Todd for the guest spot got 3 points. Alex got 1. Paul, you got none. Again. So, guest has 16. Alex has 12 points. I have 8. Danny has 7. Paul, you've got 5. Don't worry, we're not going to punish you like Everton got punished. So you still have a chance. So I'll let you start this time. What's your prediction?
I think my whole Wolves negativity has been seeping over the airwaves to you guys and being aware of the opposition and everything, because I'm going in completely the opposite direction. So I don't know if I've started on the eggnog too early or getting the mulled wine fired up, because I'm distinctly you only decorate for Christmas after Thanksgiving, so it can't be that. But I'm going into this with a remarkably high level of confidence. We're going to score 3 goals, and I will give you that Raul goal like on the 88th minute to make it 3-1, and they'll be singing his name from the away stand.
3-1 Wolves. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the second straight game and the third in 5 predictions that Paul has predicted 3 goals. I don't know if that's good or bad. Danny, what you got?
The Fulham Wolves games tend to be pretty low scoring, right? I mean, you have to go back a ways to think of one that was more than a couple goals total. Yeah, I don't know that we do particularly well at Craven Cottage, but I'm still gonna be hopeful and go 1-0 Wolves.
1-0 Wolves. Okay. Alex?
I am going to say that I believe in the defensive the lack of defensive solidity that we've been talking about. That being said, I still think they get something from it. I'll go 2-2.
2-2 draw. I am also going to go 2-2, and I think it'll be a painful 2-2 because I think Wolves are going to have a 2-1 lead, and then it's going to be Raul or Adama something at the gun. It's going to happen. Let's just admit it. It's a Monday afternoon. It's going to be weird. So I'm going to say a 2-2
weekends.
draw.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2-2 draw.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
All right, Alex, what we got for No Stupid Questions?
All right. No Stupid Questions are brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines, showcasing 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. For a limited time, you can head to esfuerzowines.com, use the promo code WOLVES. You'll receive a 15% discount on your order. I saw that Danny was sipping some Esfuerzo wine, which, by the way, is a special birthday glass of Esfuerzo wine. Is that
Yes,
is that
happy
correct?
birthday, Danny.
That's correct. It is my birthday this very day, and I'm spending it recording a podcast with you lovely people.
Oh, wow. We are certainly honored. Great birthday wine, great Thanksgiving wine as well. So the festive season, people are having parties basically from now until New Year's. What better place to get your wine for those occasions than Esfuerzo Wines? All right. We got one question to hit on only, and then we can get out of here and get ready for Monday's match. Dan Wilkes asks on X, in the theme of the holiday, covering all of the Fosun era. For which Wolves player are you most thankful and why? Also, which opposition team or player would be relegated to the kids' table? Are you most thankful for? Fosun
I
era.
am gonna, and this is probably fitting since we're playing Fulham. I am most thankful for Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez because they are the two players that really convinced me to go all in on Wolves. And I'm glad I did, even though they're not here anymore. Still love the club, love you guys, love all of Wolves Twitter for the most part. Uh, just I'm really glad that those are two guys that I said, okay, yeah, that's going to make a difference in who I choose. So that's my two.
I think I'm going for, again, out of everyone, it's a hard pick, but I think I'm going for Raul in particular, and just in terms of that exposure, and probably this podcast wouldn't exist if we didn't have Raul, in terms of recognition within the American fan base and the connection that he brought. And just, I don't think we could, like, we've had these great players, and like Neves, like, fantastic, one of the best ever, but I don't think you can underestimate what Raul did in order to come to the EPL and to be, genuinely challenging for the Golden Boot, in those seasons where he was at the very highest level, that he was talked about as one of the best strikers in the country. And like, again, it's something for me growing up that you never experienced before. So to have someone of that, the figurehead for the club, like that icon, pretty special.
Yeah, I think another pretty obvious choice would be Ruben Neves, just in terms of longevity. He stayed much longer than people thought, and then even at the end of that, we still got a huge bag. I'll settle though on being thankful for Matt Hobbs. Seems to be sort of the mastermind behind a lot of the, I won't even say like good decisions. The decisions we'll find out if they're good in the next 18 to 24 months. But just a better direction for the club. And hopefully it continues. We make it all the way to the summer safely. And then, if we can sell Neto and Jose Sa for like $120 million, then we'll really be cooking.
And as opposed to which opposition team or players being relegated, I think we know my answer. Matheus Nunes, get your big Dumbo ears to the kids' table.
He's a kids' table kind of guy. I don't know what
definitely.
that means. I think to Alex's previous point about Anthony, I think all of Man United right now is sort of a kids' table team. They're like a weird teenager who, like, in that sort of phase where you're like an early teenager, but you feel like you're very old, and you're like behaving in this like pretend mature way. It's so difficult. Well, I would say it's difficult to watch. It's actually quite funny to watch.
It's quite hilarious to watch, yeah.
I'm going for a particular team and led by a particular prick as well. The prick is the referee Robert Jones, and his team is his bunch of VAR twats in Stockley Park with their nicknames and patting them each other on their back. Go and choke at a turkey leg.
Go join the kids' table. Podence is waiting for you.
Oh yeah. Podence doesn't get to celebrate Thanksgiving in Greece.
Who's yours, Alex?
Thankful. I mean, Neves is an obvious one, but I just have to go with him because, to be honest, and I mean this with no offense, I don't know if I can thank Traore for sucking me in, because like if I'd have got sucked into a better team, that would have been really good. But then I wouldn't know you guys really. So maybe I am thankful in a way. But yeah, he served more years than he probably should have. He was probably too good for us to begin with. And the way he carried himself, I don't think you could ask for much more. Not to mention just some super memorable goals, right? Because those are the things that stick with you down the road. Relegated to the kids table. I feel like I have a lot of people I don't like, so I'm just gonna reach into the Rolodex for like the most recent one and just say John McGinn, even though like like nobody's pissed me off quite like him more recent than that, and that was obviously not very long ago. So I'll put him, although the whole like United as an entity is a great call because they've got annoying players who behave in a childish manner and absolutely no direction. And yeah, a guy in Ten Hag who, you know, thought you could come in and get all these great ingredients, and it turns out that meal sucks. Like, I gotta order pizza now. So yeah, great shout by
How about
everybody.
Jurgen Klopp avoiding the kids' table with us? That's got to be an upset right there.
Yeah, it's weird because they're just like quietly going about their business and competing for a title, like, and not like pissing that many people off in the process, I guess.
I'm still pissed about them. Like, well, just give us 3 points because of the VAR thing and call it even. No.
Oh, well,
go fuck
in the
yourselves.
same way that Southampton and Leeds and Burnley and who's the other one I'm missing are have a $300 million lawsuit against Everton. You wait until Liverpool, Arsenal, and these teams come in when the sanctions come down for Man City, and start claiming, loss of revenue for not winning the league. That's gonna be rich. Thank you, Dan, for the question. He wrote it in on X or Twitter, and that's where you can always send in your no stupid questions at WLW Pod. It's the show's handle, and you could also email us. hello@wholelotofwolves.com is our email address if you prefer to write us there. So thanks, Dan, for the question in the spirit of the holiday, and I hope all the listeners have a great holiday, whatever you may be doing this week. Really just daydreaming of goals against Fulham. I mean, that's what we're all doing for the next however many days.
So that brings this week's show to an end. After Fulham, it's another London visit. We're going to be taking Arsenal on Saturday, December the 2nd. So it will be same time, same place next week to review the Fulham result and then preview that fixture. So thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials. Again, happy birthday, Danny. And to our listeners, both here, far and wide, traveling, have a very happy Thanksgiving. And as you are tucking in on your turkey and sipping your espresso wines, say to your family and friends around the table, up the mighty Wolves.